My dear fellow listeners, good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat is a Canadian initiative with a global impact. There are a few different ways to listen to us. You can listen to us on a regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers Digital Cable, for those of you who have the Rogers Digital Box. And of course, we are also live streamer Chit Chat here, so please do take the opportunity to share a page. We ask you to stay with us if you'd like to learn a thing or two. However, if you're looking for an opportunity to vent out negativity, this is not for you tonight. We have Neaz joining us all the way from Guyana. And tonight's topic is a little bit different than what we normally have. And that is okay because tonight's topic is a very interesting and important one, a one that we normally don't hear much. And that is depression. So, Niaz, welcome to Let's Chit Chat with Narine. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing okay, and I want to thank you very much for inviting me in your very esteemed program. I'm privileged that you reached out to me. I'm honored that you did, and I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, I mean, we are honored, of course, to have you, and I commend you for taking that offer because usually, we have had, as you know, or may know, that we have had a variety of different guests on this show, but very rarely we talk about what's important. And so tonight, we are going to talk about what's important, and especially now with the whole pandemic situation, right? It's a little bit different now. But before we get into all the personal pieces that you're willing to share here tonight, why not take a few minutes and introduce yourself to us? Let us know a little bit about your background, where you were born, the school you attended, some of your roles that you've had, and so on. Then we're gonna get into this whole depression piece, and you will only, of course, share what you're willing to share.
Well, I'm from the East Bank of Demerara in Guyana. For your viewers, listeners who may know Guyana, I was born in Peters Hall, not just in proximity to the Demerara Harbor Bridge. And I grew up, I spent my formidable years in Craig on the East Bank of Demerara. I attended St. Joseph's High School, where I did my O levels, and I did A levels at Bishop's High School in Georgetown. And then I pursued chemistry and biology at the University of Guyana. And eventually I crossed over into the media. I've been in the media for over close to 35 years in various capacities as a broadcaster, as a television host. I've hosted the Guyana Today program on NCN, which is a national television here in Guyana. I've hosted that for 10 years, 10 consecutive years. And I've worked in various television stations in various capacities as news editor, program manager. I also served as the director of the Government Information Agency of Guyana, which is now the DPI from 2007 to 2015. And currently, and then I worked at the private media back again from 2015 to 2020, RGI TVG. I'm now back in the state media at NCN as a deputy chief executive officer. I also have another thing that I'm very passionate about and which I've been involved in for almost 40 years, which is theater. I've written quite a number of plays. I won Best Playwright in 2013. I directed a number of plays. I acted a number of plays. I am privileged that I had the opportunity of taking some very popular Bollywood movies and transforming them into stage plays, like Tulsidas, like Dosti, like Bhagban. I would have done those. I've written a few English plays as well. And the play that I won Best Playwright for was based on domestic violence, entitled When Chocolate Melts. And I've acted in quite a few local Guyanese movies and did a lot of work in television, making documentaries. I even produced and directed my own movie named I Am Us, which was geared for bringing our people together and was done in time for to air before the March 2nd elections this year. That ran at the Giftland Cinemas free for 2 weeks and on national television, well, various television stations in Guyana. It's on YouTube. And because I felt that we needed to talk to each other if we're going to go forward, we have to talk to each other, tell each other how we feel. Hence, the play, then the movie I Am Us. So basically media, TV, and of course, I'm a cultural activist, an Indian cultural activist. Currently, I serve on the Ethnic Relations Commission as the Indo-Guyanese representative, as a cultural representative. So it's quite a number of things. So basically, I think that's it.
Good. No, thank you so much, by the way, for taking the time because I mean, I would have not known that you were involved in so many things. And that's one of the reasons I let the guest introduce himself because there was no way I could have done it how you just done it there. So it's always the best for to have the guest to introduce themselves. Thank you so much for that. Very much appreciate it. But
Definitely.
let's get to business. Obviously, we invite you here because you're very open with your personal depression. And I think the fact that you're open this way to share your personal story with us, you'll be changing lives. So I want you to know that. So tonight is a very impactful night. Take us back though to when you started to notice that something wasn't right with you, if you know what I mean. Like things were being a little bit different and or whatever the case may be. Explain it your way because
I it may be difficult for me to pinpoint, let's say, a particular time frame when I thought something was wrong.
Mhm.
What I do know for sure that the last 4.5 years, I suffered tremendously from depression to the point where I became suicidal and made attempts. And if I were to reflect, that would have been maybe just towards the end of 2015, thereabouts, just towards that. But for while I suffered, I could not figure out what I was suffering from. I just knew that I felt I had no energy. I wasn't motivated. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to do anything. An old friend of mine told me many years back that I suffer from televitis, meaning that I cannot do without watching television. So even that I couldn't do. Also, I love Indian music, and every Sunday morning, even up to now, for the last 12 years, I've been doing an Indian music program every Sunday morning on radio. Even that I didn't want to do.
mm,
And then I realized that I had to be forcing myself, and it became so hard to do normal things. I didn't even want to see my family. I snapped at my children. I snapped at my wife. And clearly something was wrong. All I knew is that I had troubles, that there were things that were bothering me, and I didn't know how to deal with them, and they were weighing down upon me. And then gradually, as the weight got heavier, I felt that the only way out was to not be around to face these troubles and to face what I was going through. So I became suicidal. I started plotting a way of how could I escape by suicide. And I think when I look back, Narine, I I cannot believe that I was in such a dark place, and it it was such a burden. I felt like I was a burden to my own self in many ways because I felt, why am I getting up? Why am I waking up? There's no need for me to wake up, even though I have my children, I have my family, I have commitments. So clearly there were reasons for me to get up. But in my own selfish way at that moment, I felt that nothing matters. Nothing matters. So I lie down for days on the sofa, like the book alluded to this sofa, and I lie there. Television could be on. I couldn't sleep. My eyes were closed. It's on, but I'm not listening. And that went on for quite a while. I couldn't eat, but this fact that I had to go to work at some point, and the fact that I had to drag myself to get to work, my family noticed it. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I just don't feel like going to work. I'm tired. And I had to hide it from them. I hide it from them. And I don't know if my theater experience allowed me that ability to hide it from them. I think it did. But if I may, um, what became the most difficult thing to do, Narain, in hiding it, I had to smile at work. I had to smile in the company of people, and that was hard. It was so hard to bring a smile, and I know I had to do it. I felt like if my face was wrapped in iron, and I had to be forcing that just to get a smile. That was the hardest thing to do, man.
yeah. So take a breath there. So when you say you knew that something wasn't right, what do you mean by that?
When I think my family was pointing out things that, are you okay? Did you know that you may have snapped when you shouldn't have? Did you know that you spoke in a way to the kids that you shouldn't have? Maybe at that time, I didn't even think that anything was wrong. I just felt it was me. I did not accept or believe that I had an issue. But I guess as time went by and things got worse, it got to a point where even when I realized that something was wrong, I was so deep into it. I was so deep into it that I was on the lot towards the lower end. And for me, it was easier to go to the end than wanting to come back up. So I said, you know what? Just give up. Just give up. Let it go. I've already crossed that threshold. There's no joy in coming back, and leave it like that. But it took a particular incident, that in getting home, I had to pass a particular bridge on the east bank of Demerara, a concrete bridge. And that bridge is in such a fairly isolated area. Not totally isolated, but away from the direct glares of people, except passing traffic. And I saw that as an opportunity of driving into that at breathtaking speed. I'm an aggressive driver, I was an aggressive driver, so I thought I had that covered. And I attempted it once or twice, well, more than once. But what I noticed when I was trying to turn the wheel into the bridge, somehow, because we drive on the left hand side, so the right hand has to pull you over, it had to pull me over to the bridge. I found that somehow, unconsciously, the left hand wasn't following the right hand. So the right hand was trying to turn the wheel to get into the bridge, but somehow the left hand wasn't helping it. So my attempts were without success. And I asked myself, why is this happening? Why is my own hand not allowing me to fulfill my own desire? Why is my hand ungrateful to me? I'm taking care of it. Why is it not allowing me to do this? And then, Narayan, it dawned upon me that, you know what? Maybe there's a reason for that. And then because I worked as the director of the Government Information Agency, which is the official information arm of the government for 8.5 years in that position. And when the government changed in 2015, I served under the APNO AFC administration for about 2 months, and then I resigned. And towards the end of 2015, as I was thinking of ending my life, I was thinking now as a media person, how would this be reported? Would they say because the PPP lost the election and I lost my job that I've done this? And what will happen to my family?
Mhm.
And I mean, nobody can control how the media will report,
For
but
sure.
clearly there would have been a political slant to it, and I don't think I wanted my family to go through that. How would they deal with that? So I reached out to someone, haven't thought about it, haven't carrying all this burden every day. I reached out to someone who was not, at least in my view, a supporter of the PPP.
Mhm.
And I went with a particular intention that I'm thinking of taking my life. And if anything were to happen, I'm telling you that it has nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with the elections. So if at all that were to come up and you were to tell this story for me, I think people will believe you more than anyone else because you're not known to be close to the PPP. And the person said, "Yes, what nonsense are you telling me? You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that." And he sat me down and I cried. I'm ashamed to say I cried. I cried maybe worse than a child.
And that is okay.
I cried and he picked up the phone and he said, "Look, I'm going to get someone to help you if I want to." He said, "Do you want to live? I'm telling you that you have to." And he picked up that phone, called the person, and the person was based in the US. And the person worked with me for about 3 to 4 months every day. And I'm happy he did. I'm really happy he did.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. I know it's very personal, very touchy subject, but it is important. And I should mention as well too. I know I told you one on one, but I lost a brother actually by suicide here in Canada. But I was young then. I didn't know much then, And so I get it. It's definitely a challenging thing. But thank you for sharing that. So if I was to ask you from a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling right now? One meaning obviously really low, like how you were, and 10 meaning, you know what, I'm getting there now. I feel as if I'm on top of the world. How are you feeling right now?
I think honestly, I'm think in between 7.5 to 8, more towards 8. I know there are challenges. They, I don't know whether it's irony, it's fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it, but towards the end of 2019, I felt I was recovering nicely. I felt motivated. I was going to work, doing my job. I was involved as an observer for the Ethnic Relations Commissions for the elections process. I was involved in all of that. And then COVID came. I tested positive for COVID in March, on March 29th. I was isolated for 49 days in a room in the hospital. 9 persons died around me. My brother committed suicide during that period. I couldn't go to his funeral. He was buried on my birthday in April. And I'm thinking, I asked myself, I felt I got it over at the end of 2019, early 2020. Why is this happening to me? Why me? What is really going on? And right, I'm not ashamed to say this. Someone died very next to me, the first person that died next to me in one isolation facility. I was moved to another, 9 persons died there. So death was around me. And I tell myself, when I wanted you, you failed me. You didn't come to me when I wanted you. Now I don't want you. You're around me. You're circling me. You're showing me that you are in charge somehow, that you're teasing me. So make up your mind, one way or the other. Just make up your mind. Don't do this to me. And I started to feel better in hospital. I was really worried about whether I would have come out or not because of my underlying conditions and all of that. The doctors they work around the clock to help us, all who were there. And as I started to improve, I remember I have an Afro-Guyanese woman who's my second mom. I grew up in front of her for over 40 something years, and she calls me son. And I recall about 2 years ago, 2 years before that, when she knows me. So she was talking to me one day and she said, Shane, they know me as Shane. Shane, something is wrong. Tell me what's wrong, son. I said, no, nothing is wrong, man. I'm fine. She said, no, you're lying to me. But whatever is wrong, pray. I said, pray, it doesn't help. I mean, I tried, it's not helping me. She said, no, that is why you need to pray. Even though you feel you're not getting help, don't give up, keep praying. And in the hospital, when I realized I was feeling better, I remember her words. And I said, maybe this is why death is lurking, but he's not coming, he's not successful. Something had to be keeping him away from me. And I felt that there was the other person the other being, that supernatural being who's omniscient and who's watching over, had a role to play in that. So I started to pray in the hospital. Now I'm a Muslim. So you're in a hospital, it's not very hygienic in some parts, even though they're wiping the floor. But I asked for forgiveness. I put up my sheet on the floor and I prayed. I prayed 5 times a day as much as I could. And I found that helped. It really, really helped. It had me thinking in a completely different direction so that I can avoid a relapse. I knew what I went through 4 years before. And I think I had enough strength and understanding to believe in myself that it is happening again. But this time around, I'm in a little bit of control that I could say, look, no, I know this is happening. I reached out to the doctors. I told them how I was feeling. They were not surprised because they knew what isolation can do to anyone. And they got some psychologists to work with me on the telephone. And I'm here today sitting talking to you.
Good. No, and I'm so glad. I'm very proud and very pleased, by the way, sir, that you took the time to do this, because you and I might never know this, but people are watching, people are listening, and you will be changing lives. I know because now is a very challenging time, especially with the pandemic. A lot of people going through a lot of challenging time, and the fact that you're sharing your story here, which not too many people can do, is a beautiful thing, and I commend you for that. So if I was to ask you, what's the biggest lesson you have learned during your darkest days? What will that be?
There are quite a few of them. And the first one I think is that depression is real. Depression is real. It's a monster. It's a towering bully, a dark bully that that entices you. that wants company and doesn't let you go. It has that hold over you. You know, Narine, the fact that I denied that I had a problem for quite a while, I think maybe that's one of the important lessons, not to deny it. Try to realize, come to the realization that you know what, something is wrong. You know, in television, there's a particular international company as part of the general training. They say, look, you're producing a piece, forget all about the academics and whatever. If it doesn't look right, something is wrong, right? Simple as that.
Mhm.
So if you are not yourself and you know yourself, then something could be wrong. Allow yourself to come to the point that, you know, first of all, to realize that you're wrong, that something is wrong, and then seek whatever assistance that would be available. To me, importantly, too, is that people who you work with, your family, your friends, they know you. They know your routine. They know your style. You're effervescent or you're a subdued person. And when they see changes in that, at least if they see the changes is a bit consistent, then I would urge those people also to reach out, not to be intrusive, not to be insensitive,
Mhm.
but to reach out and say, hey, we are friends, you know? You can tell me anything. Something doesn't seem right. And for me, that's a lesson that others must be able to reach out and to give you that sense of confidence that you can be able to really find something to hold on to. But depression is real. Mental illness is real. I denied that I was mentally ill. I even had a very, you know, I wouldn't say heated, but a high decibel conversation with a leading health official here in the country at the time who was telling me that whatever I didn't tell him what my problem was.
Mhm.
We were talking about suicide. And through the Indian organization that I'm involved in, we were trying to get suicide be declared a national priority. And we fought for that because we believe if it had been declared by an act of parliament as a national priority, then resources would have had to be made available to deal with it. And in talking about that, and he's a doctor actually, and he said that it's mental health, and I knew what I was going through, and because I told myself I wasn't crazy, and I'm saying crazy deliberately because the stigma that is attached to mental health, from the time you say mental health, there's some people who jump all the barriers and go straight to crazy. You need to be in an asylum. So I said to him, I am not crazy, right? But I never understood that it's much more than that. It's not just with being crazy, it's much more than that. And I regret that. I regret not doing these things. And because I would have done these things and I would have documented it in the book, I am hoping that people would not be me, that they can learn from whatever mistakes I would have made and let my mistakes be your lessons and be your motivation to seek help if at all you know that something is not right with you.
For sure. And there's no question that the book will make a difference. And there's no question that you open up, sharing your story here will make a big difference, because it's not an easy thing you're doing here right now. But before we continue on, I want you to take a deep breath and feel a little bit comfortable there. Let me acknowledge a few people here. You have a friend of yours watching right now, says, I think he mentioned when he saw that you're going to be on this show. He lives locally here in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. He made a statement that you guys work together at some point, says. So thank you, says. And he's basically saying that he's happy to see you here tonight. So that's awesome. And another good friend of mine, Rex Mohan, he says that, by the way, I like your performance in the movies. so, so, so and so all of you guys, and Shanta, I thank you for taking the sneak peek, and thank you for acknowledging it here. All of you, we appreciate you. Do know that tonight topic is a little bit different, but it's a very interesting one, because Niaz, you brought up a very good point, and or just before I start of the acknowledgement there, you talk about, when as soon as we hear the word mental health, like we're thinking, oh, that's not us, kind of thing, right? But believe it or not, I'm sure you know this now too, for the fact that you went through this and probably done some studies. Everybody at some point in their life will go through some sort of mental challenge. That doesn't mean that you're in Ghana, you say you're run off or anything of that kind of. Even if you are, that is okay too, right? But all of us at different times, during pregnancy, people go through mental challenges, losing a job. There's that little mental stress. Now with the pandemic, not knowing what tomorrow looks like and holds for us can be all mental challenging. The school children going through lots of mental challenges and all of that. And we had a meeting recently. I'm a social worker, by the way, and we had a meeting recently. And one of the things that came up in the meeting that we always look out for other people as social workers, but we never look out for ourselves. Right? So then I said to myself, because one coworker said, that she makes sure like here, I'm Canada, especially in North America, you do a regular checkup when you come to dentists and regular physical checkup yearly and all of that. But when it comes to the mental health piece, there's no such thing as a regular checkup until something goes wrong, and you're in this dark spot when you basically change from one person to become like a whole different person. That's when you try to deal with it, and that's when I think that it's too late. In your case, you got a little bit lucky there, which we are glad because now you're talking about it. But on that note, because you have nailed it so nicely, I would encourage people, especially people in North America here. A lot of people have coverage to see a social worker. I usually recommend a social worker first. The only reason for that is because once it gets to the point where you have to see a psychiatrist and so on, it means that it's gone too far. So the idea is to prevent it, right? So you want to start a conversation with a social worker. That's your best bet if I have to give you an advice. I always believe in preventative measure, not that things cannot be fixed, but it's nice to have that. So guys, continue those messages. We do appreciate that. A lot of people are happy to see you on here, by the way. They are glad you're here for a variety of different reasons, but I think more importantly, you are so strong to share your story, and I'm so glad you're doing that. So where do you see yourself from here? Because I mean, you've been in that dark spot. You manage, just like in being in a rough, being in a sea, where the water is really rough and you're hanging on so tightly, and you've done it so successfully. So where do you see yourself moving forward now from here? Because I mean, you took the time to put your story in a book because you want to help people. But where do you see yourself moving forward? 2-3 years from now?
Well, first of all, I'm hoping that whatever story my book has, that even if it changes one person, I think I'll be successful, Um, I believe that I was advised by the psychologist who was working with me to do something that I like. And he asked me a couple of questions, what I was involved in and so on. And he said, "Niaz, and why don't you write? Or if you like writing, I love writing, to be honest. I've written quite a number of plays, I would have said, as I would have said." And he said, write your story. He didn't talk about a book. He just said, write it down, just make a journal. And I found Narine when I found the strength to start writing. And as I was writing, I didn't just want this to be just about that dark place where I was. I wanted to put some context to it in my own personal life. And I asked myself the question, what happened to me during that 4.5 years? Was that coincidental? Was that incidental? Was that just a one-off? Or were there signs before that I wasn't seeing? And maybe this was a culmination of all of those things coming together in a way that could push me off that proverbial cliff where I was almost over. And I started to trace my life back. So I started to go back as far as I could to see where along that path, what I call the roadblock, the first roadblock along the path, that probably was something I should have taken heed of. And I went and I went, and then I realized in my life that there were quite a few incidents that I should have really stopped and take notice, but I didn't. I was so consumed with work. I remember once my secretary told me, then my then secretary said, "You're working too hard." Narayan, believe you me, if I came out of my office and the sun was up, I felt uncomfortable, completely uncomfortable. Like I haven't completed a day's work. And then I realized when I look back, the book then became a mirror. And I'm seeing myself and I'm saying, oh my, why didn't I see it then? Why did I miss that? And I'm hoping that when people, if they were to get the offer, if people were to take time, and I'll be privileged if they were to be able to read it, and they can see, and let that be a mirror of their own life. And whoever is going through whatever I may have gone through, and I'm hoping that nobody has to go through that. I can tell you, I wish no one to go through that. But if for some unfortunate reason you are going through that, and you have the strength to read, or if you're listening to me, um, take the corrective action now, to use your word. Your word. Take that preventative measure now. Reach out to someone. That someone that you reach out to may not be a social worker, may not be a psychiatrist or or a psychologist, but that person can probably get you the help and
Get
point
you,
you
yeah, point
in
you
the
to the right
direction.
direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To reach out. So I see myself, I'm hoping that this will be able to help. I'm hoping it can help people. It's not about me, it's about the illness and what it did to me. It slapped me very, very hard. It punched me down. It stamped its feet on my chest. But prayers, I found prayers. But more importantly, if I'm allowed to make this point, I hit it, and I thought I hit it well. But one day a friend of mine came to see me this country at the office I had then. And we were talking, and then he left. And half hour after, he called me. He said, "Yeah, something is wrong." I said, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He said, "No, no, 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 not about me, but you." I said, "There's something wrong with me. You just left me. We had a nice conversation." He said, "It's because we had that conversation. I could tell you something is wrong with you. I know you. And I want you. I'm reaching out to you. I'm reaching out to you." And Narine, I can tell you this, immediately I broke down. Because you know what, ironically, or strange enough, or maybe by faith, he is also a trained actor.
Mm.
So he could have spotted to know whether I was doing something that was not in character.
Yeah, he saw
Spotted
that
that.
signs.
I can tell you, I'm really glad that he did. And he reached out to me, and that began the process of trying to get help and to accept that yes, I am mentally ill. I am mentally ill. But you know what? Because our society, when I say society, I don't mean Guyana alone, but
Yeah, oh, no,
generally
no,
in
no, no.
many,
Absolutely. This is a
the
worldwide
stigma,
issue.
that's
Yeah.
stigma. And I have young children.
Mhm.
I have girl children as well. And somehow then I realized the injustice I was doing to them. And if I had crashed that car, or taken if the other plan that I had in mind was successful, I shudder to think what would have become of them. But then I realized also that because of the stigma was why I hid it, was why I didn't want anyone to know. So I'm hoping that in going forward, that where I am today, that whatever I do, whatever I say, whoever I speak with, that we can work together to break down that stigma, to destigmatize mental health, so that no one has to feel ashamed or feel it's a taboo, whether a cultural taboo or just a taboo, to accept that they need help. I'm really hoping that my effort will be at least one small contribution to help changing that mindset.
Awesome. No, this is great stuff. This is really good stuff. And like I said to you, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage to do what you're doing, because we're not in a room locked up and talking one on one here. You're talking in the open, and people are watching from all over and listening, which is a beautiful thing because you're changing lives. So you're using your darkness to put some brightness to things. So I really, really appreciate that. So do know that um, you coming on here is making a huge difference. So I want to get back to the feelings part though, because I, I I mean I would think that it will be different for every individual, of course, right? But I mean, so what does it feel like though? Like, is it more than just a burning inside? Is it more of like feeling like helpless and hopeless and feel as if like you're numb and or how does it actually feel like? Like, I mean, I know it's going to be hard to describe and explain, but if you can find a way to somehow spit out something, that can be very helpful to the viewers and listeners.
I think it's a combination, but at some point you feel worthless. You feel completely worthless, that you are taking up space that you should. You feel that you're a burden to yourself and everyone else. This is in addition to the emotional turmoil that is going through your mind. Your body is taking a beating because you're not eating. If you do eat, it's just a pinch. So you're getting weaker and weaker and weaker. There's no sleep. You literally cannot sleep.
Mm.
So you're tormented further mentally by sleep deprivation. Your body is devoid of nutrients, but somehow you don't feel that pain. That's the sad part. At least in my case, I wasn't feeling that pain.
Like
Or even if
numb.
the pain was there, it was not the primary concern. I could have lived with that, you
Mhm.
know. And it was not just a burning sensation. It was more like a volcano erupting in you. There was so much anger. But maybe if there was a good thing, maybe I didn't have the strength to carry out what the anger was pushing me to do after a while, because to get out of the couch took so much effort. To go to the bathroom took so much effort. You didn't shave, you were disheveled, and all these kinds of things. So, and imagine that happening every day and growing every single day. With every passing day, it gets worse and worse. And at some point, as I described in the book, I felt like if imagine someone walking around with two sacks of rice on his or her back, there's about 200 pounds. And imagine every day another 100 pounds is being added. And you still have to walk. You still have to find that strength to walk. At some point, you will not be able to even move a muscle. And it was a combination of all of that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And so, when you said earlier that depression is real, I have to agree with you on that because it made me remind myself of my brother before he committed suicide. I mean, that is a term, committed suicide. I know in social work we say die by suicide. They try to use different language and so on, but we have a variety of people listening and watching, so I have to use different term as well to for the viewers and listeners. But anyways, he actually, of course, do a suicide note, and in the note, he says that he has the best job and he has the best parents, and he's sorry that he's unable to continue. And so it goes to show that maybe when this depression is so deep and so heavy on you and you don't have control of your own life anymore, I guess that's it really, because material things like like nothing, there was nothing of that kind. It was just this monster, as you mention it. And um and now that I'm thinking back, because I am in those kinds of role, I cannot change the past, but I'm so glad you're coming on here. And so what you said there, I guess what I'm trying to highlighting the point is that depression is real, because now that I'm putting the pieces together, um, I can see, that depression definitely was part of him not being here anymore. Because he wrote, like I said, he wrote two letters, one for us and one for his workplace. And I mean, he planned it so nicely. He wrote in a letter that he wants, such and such to have this and that and all of that. He was giving away his possession, but I was young those times. It didn't make sense to us, right? We were laughing when he was wanting to give away his possession, and he gave me a gold watch, or he put in a letter he wants me to have a gold watch. And believe it or not, I don't wear jewelry and so on, but I always kept that one watch because it means something to me. So you coming on here, sir, and sharing your story openly, I can assure you, you are changing lives, because he's not here to tell his story. And so we're forever grateful for you being here.
If I may, with your permission,
Absolutely, this is your night. You go ahead.
while I was in the COVID unit in isolation, my brother was one of the many people who every night and every morning just sent me these little inspirational quotes that were specific to lifting your spirits and giving you hope and whatever the case may be. But because in isolation, I was always slavish to my phone. But because in isolation, I just leave the phone, whenever I get a chance, I go to it. And one day I went to the phone and I saw a message from him, but it was like about 5 hours after he would have sent it. And it says, I need to talk to you. So I said, okay, he probably just wanted to hear my voice, hear how I was doing, because he cared. But in the hospital, it wasn't conducive to really have a telephone conversation, at least not at that point. So I said, okay, I'll call you. So about a few hours after, I called and his phone rang out. And then during midnight or so, I got a text. When I woke up, I found the phone and it had a text saying, I wanted to talk to you, but you missed out. So again, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he wanted to get something to me and whatever. A few hours after, I got a call that he committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
And that hurt. It really hurt me, man, because I felt that he was reaching out in some way. And despite him giving me hope, he was having his own troubles that I was unaware of. And this is where I think by hiding stuff, we naturally tend to do that for what, and that, I think there are good reasons that people do that because they feel they do not want to bring shame to their family and themselves. So they're not. So here was another case of my own brother
Mhm.
hiding his case, and I didn't know. And here was he, despite his pain that he was going through, he was trying to make me feel good and
Mhm.
to encourage me on. And it shocked me. It really did. And as I said, he was buried on my birthday. And I am thankful that because of what I had, what I suffered in the past, somehow allowed me some rationality to be able to deal with that situation, to understand that I cannot go back into that dark pit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that I had to find the strength to stay afloat, despite everything, the
Mhm.
COVID and everything else, to stay afloat. And also, the other point I want to make, when I was hosting Guyana today in the earlier days, and quite a number of people committed suicide in Guyana. I would have been one in the air who said that those people are selfish. They're selfish and not thinking about others. And I want to apologize to those people or their families who maybe, if any of them are listening to, I would have hurt people unknowingly because I felt they were selfish. But it's only when you are in, then you know how overpowering that force is, how overwhelming that force is. And that's a real force. People committed suicide. And unfortunately, I think we won't be able to stop it, but we can try to prevent it. And I'm hoping that all of us, and I really want to repeat this point, that while I would have been insensitive to people's families by saying people are selfish, only when you wear that shoe, only then you could know where it pinches. And because I was there, I know how overpowering it was.
Mhm.
I am so thankful that for whatever reason, whatever almighty power might have been there to help through people to pull me out from that, I'm so thankful for that. And I'm hoping that one, let's don't judge people.
Mhm.
Please, none of us, let's don't judge anyone, regardless of what people may say, what they're going to. Do not judge them. What you can do is offer a listening ear or a helping hand and see how you can be able to make a difference and to instill confidence in people that you know what, that they don't have to be afraid to come out. They don't have to worry about the stigma, that you are there to be that shield, to help shield them and to guide them through. And I'm really hoping that through whatever I would say, that these are the things that we can see some changes in going forward.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so, guys, for those of you who may have missed it, we are joined by Niaz from Guyana, who's openly sharing his personal story openly, and for that we are forever grateful. He's sharing his story of, him suffering, I guess we can say, from depression, which is a very dirty, nasty thing, and it is real as he said it. And he sadly, one of his brothers or passed away. I'm not sure if you have more brothers or not, but he lost a brother by suicide. I lost a brother as well, and I know a coworker I used to work with, and um, for a variety of different reasons, some of which you have said. People don't want to give other people burden and all of that too, and some people hide it really well. Because I had a coworker who kept it so well. There was, at least I wasn't able to see any sign. We worked together, nicely, the same, the same, together and all of that. Came home back from this, with the same vehicle, and then 15 minutes after, I heard the person is dead, and I said, no, it cannot be, because I just met the person, right? And it goes to show that, you know, um, these things are real. And I think us as human beings, regardless of what profession we may have, if we recognize something or some change in, in our own circle, we don't have to go look for signs everywhere, but in our own circle, own circle of friends, even, spouse, children and so on. If you're seeing some kind of change, maybe it's an opportunity to start a conversation and see what went wrong, what's the change of the behavior and all of that. And, and especially here in North America, people should take every opportunity to use all the resources they have. Everybody's covered. Most people, you have insurance to see psychiatrists, all paid for, social worker, all paid for. And so I would encourage people to start to utilize these resources, now, starting today. Don't wait until thing goes wrong. Go see us, see a social worker or something like that. Kind, just have a little conversation. Start that way. Understand all of those pieces. That way, you're kind of preventing things from happening because you're catching things from early. So I just thought I'd share that here. So it is so nice to have you on here. So I'm going to take a quick peek here and say hello to a few people. That way gives you that opportunity to draw your breath because you've given us so much already. So you deserve a little bit of a 30 minutes break there, to kind of recharge yourself there because it's such of a heavy topic, that's for sure. And so let me take the opportunity to say hello to Angel Singh. Thank you so much. And we appreciate your comment as well too. I know today's show is a little bit different but very important. One of the things we do in this show here, by the way, is that we look for gaps and we try to, bridge those gaps. And we know that and when it comes to mental health, depression, all of those things are real stuff. And I was so pleased when I reached out to Neil without any Niaz, without any hesitation. He reached out to me because um, it makes my life easy actually, because sometimes I reach out to people when I see an opportunity and then they're telling me tomorrow and then I never hear back from them, so this is awesome. Um, and of course, I think the book will do well on a positive note because people are saying they would love to have a copy of that book, because the book can change life, guys, because you have a real person sharing his story. So if I was to say it in the most appropriate way tonight, Niaz is the expert here tonight because he's sharing his story, something he experienced. So this is not doing a survey and speaking of somebody else's words. This is his story. So this is really, 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 really good stuff. So are you how are you doing though, like in terms of sleep? Like, are you having trouble sleeping? Are you having trouble eating? Are you eating less? Are you eating more? Are you sleeping less? Are you sleeping more? Or you find that things are getting better for you?
I'm in a much better place now. I'm in a much better place, and I was in very good hands at the Georgian Hospital between March and May. But that's a time I spent in isolation. Of course, nothing is perfect, so I have some challenges here and there,
Of
but I
course.
am in a much better place. I'm getting back to my creative self. I recently wrote a short play on Diwali, so I'm getting back to myself. I'm not there. I know
Mhm, mhm.
there's more distance
Of
to
course,
go, but I'm in a
absolutely.
much better place. Much better place.
And did I hear you correctly when you mentioned earlier that you were tested positive for COVID as well too?
Yes, I spent 49
Yes,
days.
yes, yes. I thought I heard it, but I thought me check. So you've gone through a lot there because I'm laughing in a good way because I'm thinking, I guess what I'm trying to say to you here, sir, that if you've gone through all of these challenges and you still make it here tonight, like how much more worse can life be? I mean, in the sense that you've gone through all the worst pieces. So I think you've hit all the dark pieces. So it's your time now to kind of really shine and really be a good example, to tell you the truth.
And not to add, but I mean, if I may tell you this, you may be surprised, but I lost my mom in September.
Like, you,
Um,
hold on, you mean this September here?
this September gone. I
Oh,
lost
wow.
my mom. But you know what? It's 2020, and we have
Yeah.
to accept that
Mhm,
2020, whatever we want to attach to it, whatever superstition we want to attach to it,
mhm.
it's not just 2020. It's life. It's fate. These
It's
things
life,
are
of
different.
course, of
But
course.
it's just coincidentally they're all happening in 2020, and maybe at the same time. But I guess because strength, we don't know our own inner strength until it is tested. And in the
Absolutely.
book, I spoke about it takes strength to find strength. And it took me a lot of strength to really find the strength to say, look, I need to get up. Get up meaning I was down in the bottom of the pit. I could
Mhm.
only go down, and if I go down, I was out. But if I wanted to be in, I had to get up. And it took a lot of strength to do that. And I'm hoping that people who are listening to me, looking at me, I want to tell you, you know what, that if for some reason you're one of those persons who are experiencing what I'm talking about,
Mhm.
I want to tell you that's not the end. There can be a new beginning from where you are. Do not see that dark couch or if you've taken off all your lights, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and you feel hopeless, and you don't think that there's nothing else that matters, I am telling you, I was there, and because I came through that, and I'm human like you, so I know, like you, like me, that inner strength is in you. It is not the end. There can be a far new beginning for you. And if you don't mind, I could share this is a story that we all know of the frog that lived under the coconut shell and thought the sky was brown. And for many years, that frog, you could not convince the frog that the sky was not brown. But then someday somebody passed and kicked the coconut shell by accident, and the frog is left in the wide open now, and you see something completely different. Oh, shucks, the sky is not brown anymore. There's a different sky. It's blue, it has clouds, it has stars. I'm saying that that coconut shell that hovers over you can be kicked, and you can kick it. When you kick that coconut shell, you'll see a different sky metaphorically. You'll see a whole new beginning. And I want to encourage you, despite whatever, despite how bad you feel, consider that it's not the end. Think of it that it's not the end. There's another phase that you can truly come through. And when you come through that, you will feel a sense of accomplishment. You will feel renewed, and you will feel empowered that you can now help others. And I want to encourage you to do that.
Fantastic. And so, I mean, I was going to ask you advice here, but you've brought up a good point here that this is, it's not the end if people are in that state in their life, But let me take the opportunity though, because tonight is your night. Let me take the opportunity to read a few things. I'm sure you will read them eventually, but let me read a few things. In the meantime, think of this question because somebody is asking this question. Says is asking this question. Did music, meditation, exercising, etc. Were those things helpful to you? Don't answer now, but think about that. If you did them, we want to hear from you. Shanta is saying that I have to say you are one brave, individual, and very strong, which is great. And she also saying that God bless you to handle this monster problem, depression. But it's a very happy ending, so which is a beautiful thing. So did you do any of that? I'm assuming, I think you may have mentioned one or two of that already. Did you do any meditation piece, exercising, and the basic stuff that they usually recommend, kind of thing? And did you find them helpful?
Not during the darkest moment.
Okay,
During that
yeah.
moment, there's nothing.
Because the energy is not there, right?
And you know what's ironic? What is even painful, Narine? I do a Sunday morning program where I play Indian music. I love old Bollywood music.
Mhm,
But there was some morning that I had to go and do that program,
mhm,
despite what I was going through. And in doing that, I had to shut my ears out literally in some way. I don't know how I found the strength that I'm playing the music for the audience, but
mhm.
I'm not hearing it. But
Yeah.
eventually, as I improved, I found comfort in my music again. In the hospital, we had to exercise in the hospital, right, to keep the body going. And then
Mhm.
it came out, I continued that routine. So now I enjoy my music. I enjoy playing this music on Sunday morning. And the experts will tell you that one of the therapeutic things during those periods is to listen to upbeat music. It really helps. So while I may not have had the strength and did not want to hear it, my purpose here is also to encourage people to do the things that can help them. And if music is your thing, listen to it. Meditation helps. Music helps. All these things help. So whatever it takes to find that strength.
For sure. So do you think that if you were to recognize, the first set of signs that something wasn't right within you, that could have prevent things from getting worse, kind of thing? Or did you feel that it didn't matter?
It didn't matter.
Mhm,
Nothing. You
mhm,
get to a point where nothing.
mhm, mhm,
As long as suicidal thoughts take over,
mhm,
and you mentioned it, you get to a point, where you have to have psychiatrists intervening and all of that. It means that you've gone a far way. You spoke about preventative measures. So what we can only advocate for here, or try
mhm.
to advocate for, is preventative measures.
Absolutely, I'm with
Okay?
you.
So you don't have to get to that point where
Mhm,
nothing matters, because as long as suicidal thoughts start to take you over, you have little or no control. And I think you mentioned that. But I'm saying, because I came over that, I overcame that, I'm saying that is not the end. Don't let the thoughts drown you out.
That's right, and I think that's where your strength lies, though. Whether or not if you recognize it, because I recognize that, and so though you were in a very dark place, you still manage to come out of that darkness, right? And keep in mind, not too many people are able to do that. That's one of the reasons we have lost many people, people that we know. You lost a brother, right? I lost a brother. I lost friends, and believe it or not, but the media doesn't show it. But here in Canada, University of Waterloo, there are many students killing themselves, hanging themselves, and all of that. And the reason behind that is we have lots of international, lots of the study shows. And I know a police officer works there, and he does all the report writing. So I know this information, but they don't keep it out in the open to scare students and so on. But anyways, we have lots of international students coming from different parts of the world, India and all of that. And these students, they have there's a lot of pressure because my understanding of it, and based on some of the research as well too, parents put all of life saving and investing on that child, right? And so coming to Canada for some people, especially from different part of the world and whatnot, is a big deal. You're investing in your child. You're hoping your child will become an engineer and all of that. When they come here now, it might not be the field of choice that they enjoy or doing well in, or to maintain certain standard, whatever the parents or family members are expecting. And that puts a lot of pressure on the student, beside other things as well too. But that's one of the reasons. And it's happening a lot because they I mean, help it's out there, but like when you're new in the area, new to the country, that not knowing how, or the stigma that you talk about, right? You come from a rich family, I'm rich, like nothing, like I can't have mental health issue, things like that, right? So you really clarify that. I'm hoping that is something people walk away with, and so that's a powerful thing. However, I I'm giving you, just in case if I may have missed anything, I'm giving the opportunity to say any last thing you would like to say, any final thing that probably pop up that you want to share before we kind of wrap it up. But tonight, definitely to those of you who are watching or will be watching at some point, do know that help is out there, exactly what Nia said. Do know that depression is real. Do know that it's nothing to be shamed about, right? These things we cannot control, and these things we cannot deal with it on our own. you know we have to be among people, and people have to kind of help us to get over whatever challenges that is. That is a normal thing, so it is not nothing to be ashamed about. So make sure you, if you can walk away with any bits and pieces, it will be exactly what Nia said. We have to put our pride at the side. Because sometimes men and macho men and all that, we feel that we cannot do that. Niaz mentioned about openly cry. He cried in the show as well too, and so that is okay. Men can cry, human being can cry, and crying is a good therapy too, believe it or not. And so it is totally fine. So any last word you would like to say, please go ahead and do it. But I want you to know, sir, that I appreciate you so very much. You actually you we have been chatting about something very, 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 very tough. I didn't realize we could have do this openly here. So like a dark thing, you kind of put a bright light to it, and basically everything that you have shared, you basically will be changing lives. And you're even encouraging me to make sure that I'm doing my regular maintenance in terms of doing things to prevent things from getting worse, because it can happen to anybody. Believe me on this one. This is not about a specific type of people. It's kind of like they're like the coronavirus, right? You're like, oh, it's not going to affect certain people. So this is, I mean, we try to have a little bit of humor and so on in between, but this is serious stuff, and it can happen to anybody. It is not uncommon. So take it away. Any last minute thing, it's all yours.
Thank you. And I want to reiterate what you said, that this mental health, like coronavirus, it doesn't discriminate. And because of machoism, because of status, because of our culture, and sometimes we forget that culture could also be a factor. And you made a very good analogy there with this, with a child coming from, let's say, from a poor country, from a poor family, get an opportunity to go to get an opportunity to go to a country like Canada, there's a lot of expectations from on that child. So you have some pressure. Then you have peer pressure. There's so many things. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because we do not want to forget that children can be scarred for various reasons. Those who would have witnessed domestic violence or whatever, children are affected, and we must always remember that. But in closing, first of all, let me thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to tell my story, because I may have a story to tell, but if I don't get a platform to tell it, there's no story really to tell, or there's no really effective way of telling it. So I have to thank you and the others who have reached out for me to speak and to be able to tell my story. So thank you again, and all those who messaged in and all of those who are listening. I want to thank them because I'm hoping that through them, we can be able to spread this message and get more people involved so we can increase the sensitization and awareness and be able to help, help people. But then one last point I want to make is that there are certain things in life that we cannot hold physically, you know. In a computer, there's the hardware and there's the software. You can hold a mouse, but you can't hold whatever you're clicking on. You can only click on it with that mouse. There are certain things that you cannot. And one of those things is hope. We may not be able to hold hope physically, but we can hold hope in our hearts and take comfort that, like everything else, all of our religious scriptures, our stories, our religious holidays speak about darkness being triumphed over light, that light will prevail in the end. You may not be seeing that light right now, but you know what? The light may be behind a turn. There may be a turn on the road. You can't see the light in a straight path because light travels in a straight path. But because it may be a little turn in the road, you can't see it. But the light is there. I'm telling you it's there because I saw it. I had to look for it. I searched for it and I found it. And I'm saying don't give up hope. Find strength to get strength. And know that that light is there. Where you are is not the end. It is not the end. Yes, there's an eventual end, but where you are now is not the end of where you can be. There's a whole new opening that lies ahead of you. And give yourself that chance, not just for you, but for your loved ones. And think of them. You know, Narine, when the doctor asked me at one time if I had any reason to live, I told him, no, I said, Doc, the fact that I wanted to kill myself, there's no reason for me to live. And he asked me, he said, okay, how many kids you have? How many children you have? I said, I have 5 biological sons and 2 stepdaughters. He said, well, you have 7 reasons to live. He said, you have a mother, a father, a wife? I said, yes. He said, well, 7 plus 3. And he kept going on. Of course, immediately I couldn't grasp what he was saying. But as I started to reflect and think, and then I realized that, you know what? There are more reasons to live than to wanting to die. There are more reasons to fight depression. You know, it's like a school bully. That's how depression operates. But bullies have been stopped. And you can stop it. You can stop it. I agree with Narine that we cannot do this alone. So in as much as we will reach out, I want to encourage those who people are reaching out to, that you will respond. And you will respond genuinely and caringly, not expecting anything in return, other than the fact that you're helping to save a life. And if you were to understand that depression can push you to suicide, everyone that you help, you're helping to save that life and to preserve happiness in their respective families. And I do hope that whatever I said today in some small way, you can find useful. I mean, we may not agree on many things. We all have different stories. It takes different turns. But in the end of the day, life is life. And humanity is important. And I can tell you, humanity is not lost. It may be challenged, it may be pushed to the bottom, but it is not lost. The fact that people help me, I'm grateful. The fact that I'm here, I'm asking you to help others. Not for them to be grateful to you, but knowing that you're serving humanity by reciprocating and offering that helping hand. So when someone is going to use you as that straw to clutch, hold that hand, don't let go, and pull. Pull with all your might, because you're pulling someone from a deep, dark pit whose ankles may be wrapped in chains by depression. Keep pulling, keep asking questions. And I think if we all were to do that together, I think we can make a tremendous difference against this dark beast of depression.
Yeah, thank you. You wrap that up so nicely. And so what that means is that we will have to have you back again at some point, because we want you kind of because we have to do it on a continuous basis, because for some people they will have to hear it a few times that it is okay to seek out for help, or it is okay to have a conversation with somebody if you're comfortable letting them know that something doesn't seem to be right. And if they're if you approach them in an appropriate way, a nice way, and most likely people will respond and share as well too, or break down the way you did and all of that. So we will have to have the conversation continuously. So if whenever you're ready to come back, or if we feel the need to have you back, definitely we'll try to to do so back. You have a good head in your shoulder, by the way, because you have like a lot of life experience and exposure to different things. And I think that's one of the reasons why tonight has been such of a beautiful, rich one. That's for sure. There's no question about that, and we forever grateful for that. So
Thank you. I'm available to you at your
oh
convenience.
no, and we will take full advantage of that, just so you know. And because people will need it, I'm aware of that. And to people, don't be afraid. So for those of you, if you need resources and so on, you want to reach out to me directly. I know some of you have already done all of that. That is great. And do know, and I can assure you one thing: when I can only speak for myself, when you reach out to me, whatever conversation we have, it doesn't go anywhere else. I don't have to call Neaz and say, guess what, Tom just called me and this is what Tom is saying, and so on. We do things professionally. We wouldn't share anything unless if you have decided to add somebody else to that, to that helping piece. But so, because I know people are a little bit hesitant, and I know it's extremely difficult. Nobody wants to go, and just openly share their story just like that. It takes a guts to do that, right? Because of maybe experience you've had in the past and all of that, and or probably are afraid that you're going to be judged, and so on. None of that. Just that, right? So don't be afraid to reach out. And there's always ways for us to connect you, with some sort of resources or the right people. And sometimes that's all it takes. And then once people get the hint that something is not right, you don't have to do anything much after that. They are going to be able to take it from there. So have that courage. So Nia Niaz did it, and he did it so well, and he's openly sharing his story here, and he put a lot of smiles in so many people's faces. I can see all the comments that people are saying here, and they're very impressed with your presentation here tonight, Nia. So that is a beautiful thing. So your job here tonight made me look good, so I appreciate that. So my dear fellow listeners, as we are officially, stay right there, Niaz, don't go anywhere for now. My dear fellow listeners, as we are approaching the end of tonight's program, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Please remember to tune in to us again next time, where we're going to have another special guest. On behalf of myself and our very unique guest here tonight, Niaz, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great tonight and even better tomorrow. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.